Everyone in the car just held their breath for a hot second because they were like, ah! They all knew it was what I did, but I didn't realize till we turned. I was like, what's wrong? Like, you don't go that way. I really love how they have chicken salt. We don't have that over here in the States. We just put on normal plain salt. I've been trying to figure out a way to like import that. It was one of the greatest things I've ever had, is chicken salt on my fries. I sat there at the end of the day just trying to breathe. Like my stomach expanded so much, got in the way of my lungs. I remember that was the roughest night's sleep I've probably ever had in my life. But I was well fed. I can't complain. I really shouldn't complain. I wish we had a Nandos over here. Nandos, easy. First thing, if I had all the money in the world, I'd build a Nandos right wherever I lived. If I moved to California, boom, I build up this Nandos. Here in Utah, I want Nandos. Over in Idaho, I want Nandos. If I would move New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Texas, I want Nandos. There's this magpie swooping season. So you'll be biking, you'll have your helmet on, and all of a sudden you have a bird coming down, just attacking your helmet or your shoulder or something. They'd come and just swoop and just try and like hit you. Never made sense. Don't know why. I wasn't carrying around breadcrumbs or nothing. They would just come get me trying to get a picture. But it was just, yeah, the magpies, the birds would just come in and give you a good knock on the noggin. Or another thing we did while biking is, you only made this mistake once. You'd be riding your bike and the flies and the mosquitoes over there, the mozzies, they just, these black clouds would be everywhere, and you'd be biking and you'd go to talk to your companion, your friend, whoever you're with, or the group you were doing service projects with, and you'd open your mouth once, because once you got a fly in your mouth, you only did it once. I learned that lesson the hard way. Got a couple flies in my mouth. I never opened my mouth again while biking, or if I did, I'd cover my mouth. I should have started wearing a mask. And we see this spider, and I just, hey. And so we actually ended up catching it, and we put it in a jar. But we thought this spider was just the coolest thing, and turns out later we found it was like a wolf spider. So it's supposed to be one of the more poisonous spiders there in Australia, and had a couple people, when we showed them pictures, I like sent a picture home. I was like, look what we got a pet or something. Don't know if we were supposed to keep it as a pet. We ended up releasing it outside because we had no idea what we were doing, but I thought it was one of the more deadly spiders in Australia that if been bit, potentially we could have been hospitalized or something. But yeah, we held on to it for a day or two, and then we're like, why do we have this? But it was just crazy because I didn't find out until about a year later, where I was showing people these pictures because what kind of wildlife have you seen and whatnot. And I was like, oh, look at this. they were like, what are you doing? And I was like, I don't know, it was cool. I saw a spider in Australia. Turned out could have been really bad, but nah, it turned out all good. You'd go to church meetings, or you'd see people go to business meetings, or be working in offices, and they got like dress shorts. And they got dress shorts, they got short sleeves, and they would generally have a tie. Some people didn't always have a tie. It'd go both ways, but it was a big shock to go over there and see that formal was like casual. I thought it was really nice. I never wore dress shorts, but I do now. Sunsets, absolutely spectacular over the sand or the ocean right there along the coast. That's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, is the sunsets along the west coast over there. If I put on the accent, it actually, I've been told it sounds a bit more Kiwi or New Zealander. That was probably one of the people I was exposed to the most in the different areas, working with the Polynesians or the New Zealanders, probably right there next to the Australians. I've been back about 3 years now, and so the accent is not as genuine as it could be. I'm not doing them justice with the grace of their accent, but I don't know, the g'day, that they actually do say g'day. I still say that now when I run into people, and they look at me and they're like, where are you from? And I'm like, I'm from Idaho, mate. What are you talking about? It was a little bit of a culture shock to see massive city. Like when I got to Perth, it was absolutely massive. When I got there, I was just like, yeah, there's a lot of people here. What is going on? And then drinking was super normal. I just never been exposed to that degree, and I was like, oh, It's interesting. It's like 4 in the afternoon and you're out in your porch drinking. Cool, you go, man, you go for it. It was real interesting to see how normal that was, how accepting they were of no matter where anyone was at, you were a person. They respected each other no matter what they were doing. I just thought it was one of the top qualities, and not that people where I'm from never did that, but to go out in the world without my parents and to see how actually kind and accepting the people were no matter where anyone was at in their lives was just, it was spot on. It was awesome. So at first it was a big culture shock, but then I was like, actually, you guys are so cool. But I absolutely loved it. Driving over there was super weird. So over here in the States, we drive on the right side of the road, they drive on the left. And actually, they're some of the most polite drivers I've ever met in my life. It took a day or two for me to actually be like, I can turn left at a red light. But driving on the left, so first time I ever drove in Australia, went through this little training course, watched some videos, and I'm driving, and they got these roundabouts that end up being like 5-6 lanes, which actually is they're way more effective with their roundabouts over there than we are over here. And they're really polite. They let people merge and come in and out. It was wonderful once you understood how it worked. But you go to merge into the roundabout, and guy was driving with them, you're gonna turn right, and I was like, but go all the way around it and then turn right. And he goes, no, you gotta turn right. And I was like, oh, and he goes, no, right now. And I knew to Australia, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm on the different side of the road. The steering wheel, I'm like going to reach for my drink or something, but it's on this side. It was so bad. And but I turned right, and so I'm going against traffic for a good second. It was not a busy time of day. There's maybe 4 or 5 cars in this 5-lane roundabout. It really wasn't busy. No cars are coming at us, but I kind of flipped a U-ey there on the roundabout, and everyone in the car just held their breath for a hot second because they were like, ah! They all knew it was what I did, but I didn't realize till we turned. I was like, what's wrong? Like, you don't go that way. And they were worried cars were going to be coming at us, but there was almost nobody there, so we ended up being safe. But I'm glad I didn't learn that lesson the hard way. Other than that, never had a car incident or nothing in Australia. It was really polite people with driving. Over here, and I guess right now I'm in Utah, the driving can be a little ruthless. But over there in Australia, now some of the most polite drivers I've ever met in my life. Beautiful people, beautiful place. I couldn't have asked for a better place to spend 2 years to work among a people that originally I didn't think was my own, but now I fully feel like I'm a part of the people. When I was over there, never felt excluded or left out. Everyone just made you feel like you were home. Really good people. The Australian people overall, whether they were actual Australian natives or not, just had this resilience, because it really was hot all year round. Like, their winter was still warm. It's like the summers over here in the States where we're like, oh, it's like hot, it's like 80 degrees, 70 degrees, and over there like, yes, it's cold. It's cooled down. And so these wonderful people, no matter what they do, they get up and they get to work, and they're just, everywhere you went, it seemed just like everyone was a positive part of the community, going out of their way till they could for their families. Wonderful family people. They do really love their families. Their families are their closest people in their life. Hard workers. They always get up and they'll do the hard yakka. They'll do the hard work. Hardworking, loving people, super kind. I don't think I actually had anyone be super mean or rude when I was over there. We'd go and we'd knock doors, but everyone would always be super nice. But actually, most of the time, they'd be like, "What are you guys doing outside? It's hot outside. You're not working construction. Like, here's a drink of water." Or they'd give you a fizzy drink or a soda or something. It was absolutely wonderful people, super kind, really tough people too. And I say that in the best way, where they just, nothing can knock them down. Really good people. The people over there were just really genuine and kind. I taught Americans in Australia, I taught South Americans, Canadians, people from Europe, from Africa, Asia, all the different Polynesian islands, Tonga, Samoa, Fiji, Tahiti, New Zealand. So it was really fun to get to be with all the different cultures and this, that. So I had food from all over the world. I absolutely loved it. I am a big chicken and rice fan, and every country has their own interpretation. All of them were great. They do a thing called the Tim Tam Slam. It's a cookie, or like a bicky, as they'll call it, and you bite off adjacent corner to opposite corners and use it like a straw in your milk or your hot cocoa, and you drink it, and it's the best straw I've ever used in my life. So I didn't realize we had Tim Tams here until I came home from Australia after the 2 years, and I still get them periodically. And Bundaberg drinks, they have them here, but they're a lot more expensive than over there in Australia. It's a Australian owned company. Still some of the best drinks. It's just kind of like a root beer that have guava flavors. They have different fruit flavors, and it's delicious. They have a Nandos over in Australia. The only Nandos over here in America is in DC, over on the East Coast, and really sad, but I'm saving up to make the trip. 100% worth it. Nandos chicken, so the best chicken I've ever had in my life. I wish we had a Nandos here. It's one of the greatest things. With some of the Polynesians, they do a hangi. They cook the pig in the ground with the stones, cook it up, and they do a big fancy dinner, and they have the pig out, and you're sitting there eating with your hands, and you, not always, but often, you kind of eat every part of the pig, brains or hearts. Or I love Australia, and actually I could see myself retiring there one day. I love the land of Oz, down under. And all of Australia is beautiful. I got to go nearly all the way up north, and then all the way down south on that west coast. And up north was a lot more sand and desert, and that pink sand, white button-up shirts we'd be wearing would turn pink. And then you'd go down south and you'd have all these eucalyptus trees everywhere, and a lot more wildlife, and that includes the spiders and the snakes. What you'd see were the blue-tongued lizards were actually one of my favorite animals to see around. They'll run around. Actually, all the animals are more scared of the people, I think, than we are of them, because you'll see them, and no matter what animals seem to be, they're just gone. They super quick. The spiders, yeah, they were big. The snakes, the blue-tongued, all of it. The blue-tongued lizards are my favorite because their tongue was blue. They look at you, and the navy blue tongue would pop out. Seeing the wildlife was super cool. Down south, they have a kind of a tourist attraction called the Diamond Tree. It's a massive tree, and they stuck pieces of rebar through it, and you could climb up this 40 feet of rebar across this tree, and you could go sit at the top and just kind of look out over the trees. And that was a beautiful spot. I don't remember exactly where it was, but it was down there in the southwest. Up north in an area I was at was called Geraldton. The wind was so strong, and out there in the desert with the heat, I think it was my first month over there in Australia, there was a massive heat wave. I don't remember all the terms, but it ended up hitting like 130 degrees Fahrenheit, 140 degrees Fahrenheit, and we got a call from kind of our main office, and they were like, hey, don't go outside during the middle of the day. We like do some studies during the afternoon or take a lunch break, but don't go outside. It's supposed to hit like 100 to 140, or I want to say it was pushing 150. It was a record-breaking summer or something. It was in 2015. I was over there 2015 to 2017 or so. So it was, yeah, I remember getting over and be like, is it gonna be this hot all year round? This is. But I actually grew to quite like the heat. With the wind being so strong, I got some super cool pictures of the trees. They would start to grow up, and then the wind would, and the trees would grow level with the ground up north there in Jarrow, and that was super cool. There was one night I ate 3 entire chickens. What we liked to do for lunch was we'd go get a rotisserie chicken, and we'd get some rolls, we'd get some butter, get some bread, some barbecue sauce, do that, and we'd eat a couple sandwiches. And I remember this one that I was so hungry. For some reason, I was just famished. I was starving. And so we stopped by an IGA, get this rotisserie chicken, some rolls, butter, barbecue sauce, and I was hungry enough. We got 2 chickens. He couldn't quite finish his, I finished my chicken. There's a bunch of Tongan fellas. They were over in Australia, working the orchard, saving up money to take home. Awesome group of fellas. But they went and bought KFC, or as they would say, kafasi. That's how they pronounce it. And they went and got us a giant feast each. So I had a giant feast, so my companion, and so did every single one of the guys. They had like 12 giant feasts. And so I ate like 15 pieces of chicken, and I was told, with specifically the Polynesian culture, if you didn't eat the food they gave you, that it was rude. And so I ate this entire giant feast after I just finished the whole chicken. We had a late lunch that day. It was probably only an hour later. Met these fellas, and they had 50-piece chicken, the rolls, the potatoes. Holy cow, I was dying. And then we had an appointment later that night. Turns out they surprised us with dinner. And what did they get? A rotisserie chicken and rolls. And we had another chicken each. And I was like, I've just eaten like a family's worth of food for the day. What do I do? And at this point, I cannot hardly breathe. I'm just sitting here. I felt so bloated, and went to this place and was just literally praying, please help me eat this food. But I was able to stomach the whole thing. So that was the day I had 3 chickens. I didn't hardly sleep. I sat there at the end of the day just just trying to breathe. Like my stomach expanded so much, got in the way of my lungs. I remember that was the roughest night's sleep I've probably ever had in my life. But I was well fed. I can't complain. I really shouldn't complain. Wonderful people. The Australians, everyone was living all just absolute wonderful people to go out of their way to make sure we had food. So I actually really loved it. It was a wonderful day and a long day. I know in Perth itself is, I've been told, maybe that's changed now, but is one of the most isolated cities in the world. Like there's only 2 airports I can get over there. It's through Brisbane, and I want to say Thailand. And so, but it was massive flight to go from Brisbane all the way over to Perth, and then if you were going back to the States or the Philippines, where you're from, you'd have to go from Perth over to Brisbane, and then sometimes you had to go to Sydney to get to the Philippines, or to go to Vietnam or Asia or the States, or go back to the LAX airport, LA airport. It was real interesting to be in one of the most isolated cities in the world, and how they really rely on the semi-trucks, the truckies, to come through and go across the Nullarbor, one of the longest highways there across Australia, to supply their stores and their food and everything, their petrol or their gas for the cars. The warmth was nice all year round. I hate the cold, I hate the snow. And actually I thought that was kind of ironic. Went up north, it was super hot, and then for winter I went down south by Bridgetown, Manjimup, and down there it's the winter capital of Australia. Or at least they have a sign outside the town saying welcome to the winter capital, but it hadn't snowed there in like over 30-40 years. I'm like, it's the winter capital, doesn't snow? But never even got cold. I maybe once had to put on a sweater, and it was, but absolutely loved it. Loved not having the snow. Biggest differences, at first it was the accent. Got over there and the lingo, they'd be, oh, I gotta run back to the flat, and then I gotta fill up my car with petrol, and it was like, what do you mean the flat? Like flatlands? Or what are you talking? But it turns out flat was the apartment, petrol was gas for the car. I still actually use words here and there, and all people look at me and they go, Logan, what are you talking about? It's super funny, but the lingo they kind of used at first really threw me off. On the front of your car, they'd have these bars, like kind of we'd have on the police cars, but then they call them roo bars, or if you don't want your car to get damaged by a deer or a moose or something, if you live out in the country, they'd have bars on the front of the car, because the kangaroos, they're so bottom heavy that if you hit them going fast enough, the kangaroo doesn't hardly move, and your car will just, that front will get smashed, it'll total the car. They were super honest people. I actually loved that, whether they were interested to talk to us or not. We'd be like, hey, how's it going? They'd be like, good day. I'm all goods, but you have a good one. And you'd be, oh, sweet as, bro, thank you. And I guess sweet as is another phrase they'd say over there for like, oh no, all goods, no worries. Every single day since I got this, I've worn this right. This is a greenstone. It's from New Zealand, but really still reminds me of Australia, because that's where I got it. And I've actually never been to New Zealand, but that helps to remind me of the lessons I learned, the people I got to work with, and just the wonderful experiences and the adventure that I got to have while I was over there in Australia. So just thank you. Cheers for everything that you've done for me. I appreciate it. Wonderful people. Love Australia. For the people of Australia, far out. One of the best, kindest people I've ever met. The country, the people, the culture, how accepting y'all are. There's so much that I learned from being over in Australia, and I hope that just continues to grow and to build into the wonderful people. And far out, one of these days I'm gonna come back and visit. That one day when I have a wife and kid, we're gonna go visit Australia, and I'm gonna tell them all the good things about the Australian people and the good that they've done for me in my life and the time I got to spend over there with them.